How's it going? I'm going to start off with a little story. It all happened 17 years ago in a small, magical, poor village named Muna in the Yucatan state of Mexico. A little boy was born, and his name was Kelvin. Kelvin was born with 5 fingers on each hand and many heart problems. He was really lucky to survive his first year. And by this time, his father had constructed 1 bedroom, a 20 square foot space with no windows and no insulation. But he had no more money. No more money to finish building his house, the house he had always dreamt of building. So he had a dilemma. He knew where he could go and make enough, just enough, to finance his house and to pay for the growing medical costs for Kelvin. But he knew that if he left, he wouldn't be back for years. What if Kelvin died? It wasn't such a crazy thought with all the problems he was having. But he was smart, and he left. So 2 years went by, and it is this cloudy, humid day, and Kelvin is outside, shirtless, playing with a long, dry branch. And his mother is 20 feet away from him under an orange tree. And she's thinking about all the challenges that Kelvin is going to have to face in his future. Having a back-breaking job, having no education. But what could she do? But what should she do? But what did she do? She said no. No to the cycle of extreme poverty. No to the cycle of struggle, of failure. And she said yes to a dream. And yes to hope. She decided that he would not speak Mayan, but he would speak English. He would be the first to leave the village and to get a full education. So, when Kelvin was 3, he and his mother got on a plane and left. What did they leave? They left his grandparents, his native language, Mayan. They left everything that had made Kelvin who he was up to that point. They left it all for survival, for a life, for a dream. Just like so many others do. And the plane landed. And Kelvin was taken to this strangely named city. It's called Thousand Oaks. And everything was new, strange, and amazing. But it's a scary place. It's a scary place for anyone. And a few months went by, and he started preschool. And it was terrible, horrible, terrible. He couldn't communicate with anyone. He couldn't express himself. Not with the teachers, not with the students. He couldn't even understand what was on the TV. He left everything. But soon, he grew up, he learned to speak English, he learned to communicate. But he always had a little part of him missing. And 12 years went by. And one day, Kelvin got the opportunity, his opportunity, to meet his hometown, his family, his roots. It was just going to take a little time to get financially and legally arranged. But he never believed it. He never hoped for it. Because he knew that if he hoped for this one thing, this one opportunity, it would devastate him if he failed to go. But one day, his attorney called, and she said, "You're all set. Go buy the tickets." And she hung up. And then Kelvin picked up the phone, and he dialed, and he said, "Lord, help me. Give me hope." And he hung up. And he went to go buy the tickets. And 3 months until takeoff. And then 2 weeks. And then a few days. And then a few hours. And it was driving him crazy. It wasn't a dream anymore. This was real. And he's scared of flights because he's really terrified of heights. But he got on there and he left. And while on the plane, he couldn't stop thinking of what it was going to be like to meet his family. You see, Kelvin left when he was 3, and now he's 16. So he must be this tall, educated, handsome person. Except he wasn't. It's like a Taco Bell ad. Your expectations, and then reality, and that gap. But he was really scared of that. And he met them. And he could not have been so wrong. The little tiny gap in his little tiny heart vanished. An apple tree stands tall if it has strong roots. Yet Kelvin went almost his entire life not knowing about his roots. Yet he stands. Why? Roots are where you can't see them. They're underneath. You only see a fraction, and that compares nothing to the real thing. And 4 days in, Kelvin and his grandfather took their green, loud motorcycle to see his mother's territory. The territory that would one day be Kelvin's. And there, Kelvin had the most enlightened conversation of his entire life. And it took him 4,000 miles to hear it. He and his grandfather talked, and his grandfather said, "Son, I don't know how it is over there in California, but now you know how it is over here. You left for a reason. Never forget it. One day you can come back and build your home here and have a family and establish yourself." And then he looked at Kelvin. And Kelvin didn't know what to say. How do you respond to that? How do you respond to that? And Kelvin said, "Grandpa, I don't consider this my home. I've lived in California for as long as I can remember. I know that my roots are here. But what do I do?" And his grandfather said, "I know that you will do what is best because now you know both sides of the story. Your story. being open-minded. That's the same as being unprejudiced, as not weighing yourself down to one thing, to one idea. And then Kelvin asked his grandfather one question, the question that will continue to influence him forever. He asked his Grandpa, how are you so happy? Why are you so happy? You have a back-breaking job. You work almost every single day in the blazing heat. You live in extreme poverty. How can you be happy? And his grandfather looked at him and he said, "Son, I'm happy because I'm successful." And it didn't make sense. It's like calculus, it just doesn't add up. And it was so confusing. And then he said, "I have a roof over my head. True or false?" Kelvin said, "True." And then he said, "I have beautiful children. Is that true?" And again, Kelvin said, "True." And then his grandfather said, "Why should I not be happy?" And then it hit him. It hit Kelvin. He realized the definition of success, of his success, because it doesn't match the definition of his grandfather's. Why? Because every single person in this audience thinks that success is different. You might all think success is the same, but it isn't, because it's a concept. Success can be a part of you. It's like being American. American is not a status. It's a part of you. No one can take that from you. Oxford Dictionary doesn't define success. You do. How silly of me. I forgot to introduce myself. I'm a grandson. I'm a nephew. I'm a dreamer. I'm a coworker. And I'm a child of God. My name is Kelvin. Nice to meet you.